Good morning, everyone. Welcome to FPC Radio Live. It's October the 24th, 2022, and it's a Monday, John. And I guess we have an obligation to once again get on this show and give our opinion, even though our two guys have unfortunately not found the win column in a few weeks, and it's alarming to say the least for both of them. And I'll say this right off the top: both quarterbacks are at the very bottom of the list when it comes to the issues their teams face. And I'm talking about the Buccaneers and the Packers, who both find themselves at 3-4 right now, which surprising now, but at the end of the year, we'll see what happens. But yeah, just a disappointing weekend for both the Buccaneers and the Packers. And there's a lot of things that were very puzzling coming out of that weekend or out of yesterday, and I'm still scratching my head about.
Yeah, it's almost like we need group counseling here, Ian, you and I, right? We're just kind of, banging our heads against the wall. I don't think either one played all that great. But there are a lot of issues with those teams besides them. Partly to begin with on the defense. I mean, all of a sudden Green Bay couldn't get off the field against Washington. A big stop, and I think maybe they eke out a victory. Tampa's defense, I mean, how do you let Carolina just gash you in the run game like that, which happened? Both offensive lines don't look good. Receivers are running wrong routes or dropping certain touchdown passes in the case of Mike Evans. And I think both quarterbacks are frustrated at this point. And, they're both at an advanced stage where they need some help. I mean, let's not forget, these are the top two vote getters for last year's MVP. I don't think they both just showed up this year and couldn't play anymore. It's just that the rest of their teammates, and I think even more so the coaching staff, isn't supporting them enough. And right now they're both 3-4. Tampa's in better shape because that division is still theirs to win. Whereas right now Green Bay's 2.5 games behind Minnesota for the top spot in the North. So yeah, and then they've got Buffalo next week in Buffalo. Good luck with that. Whether you're playing well or not, that's a tough task. But it was frustrating to watch that because both guys, I think, could still play, but you need some support.
No, absolutely. And look, I mean, the thing with yesterday, and this is, again, I'm going to keep railing on it because I've been talking about it for a long time, really going back to last year. Certainly when it comes to play action usage, when it comes to the Buccaneers and their lack of urgency. We saw it yet again last night. And one of the concerning things I have moving forward is that this coaching staff is incapable of looking themselves in the mirror. And I'm going to play you a clip that I don't know who asked the question. I think I know who it was. I haven't confirmed it yet, but someone actually asked the question, and I brought this up last week because it's been a talking point. The Buccaneers' efficiency and success running and passing the ball on first down is night and day. Mm-hmm. And it's very obvious that rushing is incredibly ineffective. They're the worst rushing team in the league. I don't understand their insistence on running the ball. I thought maybe it was stubbornness. Maybe it's just lack of awareness. And I'm going to play you this answer from Byron Leftwich's press conference yesterday. And I will frame it as, and I will tell you that the question was essentially asking him if he was aware of the discrepancy or the difference in success and failure in those two options. So here's the clip. Okay, maybe not. Hold on a second. I'm going to try to, I was having a little problem with the phone. Actually, I'm going to keep talking. I'm going to actually pull it up here. So, but the thing is Byron Leftwich gave a very concerning answer, i.e. he wasn't aware there was an issue. And when I hear that, that is a big problem for me, John, because anyone watching that game understands that they have an issue running the ball. I mean, when you get down to basically 3rd and 1 and you can't gain a yard, in fact, you lose a yard, that's a problem. And then your solution is to not only go back to the run, but go to a less effective short goal line run and a toss to the right. To the, again, to me, it's coaching incompetence, and it's almost criminal when you have a quarterback to the level of Brady. So here's that question.
So you look at it, EPA, you're 32nd in the league. Well, when you pass on
32nd in the league, and what?
And expected points added, EPA. and if you look at in passive situations, you guys are 6. Stats. They're stats. They tell the story. They don't lie. So, just wondering why I don't want to say stubbornness, but why continue to run the ball on first down when it's been ineffective?
We do what we feel as though the best thing for us to move the ball and to score points on every down.
Yeah, that is a load of horse bleep. First of all, the arrogance, the gall, so to speak, to laugh in the face of that was a very. I like I said, this is why I want to find out who asked the question, because I want to give them credit for, handling that well, because someone's up there that has been as bad at his job as Byron Leftwich has been, and it's not just been this season, has no place to get up there and laugh at a very, very appropriate question, because those of us watching the game see it each and every week. We saw it in the first couple weeks. They won, so no one batted an eye. But when you're force feeding a 50-50 split in passing, and then people were like, "Oh, well, look, they're technically they have one of the fewest, or like bottom third in a number of attempts when it comes to first down rushing." Yeah, because they can't pick up first down, so they get fewer attempts at it. Like, how many times do we have to sit here and watch this Buccaneers offense go out there, run a dive up the middle, put themselves in second and long, and then again have no rhyme or reason to their play calling, avoid play action. Play action worked yesterday, John. Oh my God, it worked, but they didn't use it. Up-tempo offense. That doesn't even enter the playbook until late in the game, which, again, another situation where, wow, that passing offense looks like elite, like it was last year. So, again, I'm sitting here thinking, and look, I'm not a Bucs fan. I'm a Tom Brady fan, obviously, but I do feel that looking at it objectively, I'm like, top of the list of problems for this team is coaching, and it's not just Byron Leftwich. It's Todd Bowles too. And I said it last week. I tweeted it yesterday. He was 24-40 for a reason with the Jets, and it wasn't because it was the Jets. It was because he wasn't a good coach. So this idea that he is somehow, again, I feel like they are tanking an otherwise what would be an otherwise pretty good season for this team. Doesn't mean that they were going to win the Super Bowl, but I feel like regardless of the injuries, regardless of who has and hasn't been in there, which lineman is in there, coaching is the biggest problem. And it's borderline incompetent, in my opinion.
You pined for the good old days of Bruce Arians.
Look.
I'm not being facetious. They won a Super Bowl together in the first year, and they had tied with Green Bay for the best record last year at 13-4, which amazingly both teams only lost 4 games last year, and they can only match their records of a year ago if they go on and win their last 10 games, which probably isn't likely.
Well, they could both exceed it if they go on and win a Super Bowl, technically. So there's still hope.
That's true too. Yeah.
Positive thinking, John.
Yes.
PMI.
Yes, we got to be positive, right, for the 2 old guys. A lot of the concerns you echoed about Tampa, I can share when it comes to Green Bay. Again, maddening slow tempo. He wants to play more of an up tempo. He wants a simplified thing. He said last week, he being Aaron Rodgers, that there's flaws in the Shanahan system, or whatever you want to call it, right? The system that 40% of the teams are using right now, San Francisco, Green Bay, whoever. He says there's flaws in that system. Now, the only thing is Aaron sometimes goes out there and proves that there are flaws in the system by not playing so well. And he is the kind of guy, if he's not totally bought in, it's almost like reverse psychology. He may torpedo the whole thing. That's kind of the way he's wired, unfortunately. But I look at it as you have the greatest quarterback in the history of the sport. You have another guy who I think is the 5th greatest quarterback of the Super Bowl era, and I don't think I'm overhyping him or being hyperbolic. Let them run the offense. Does Byron Leftwich or Matt LaFleur know more about offenses than Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers?
No.
I don't think so, right?
And to kind of add to that, I mean, people, and this is kind of the response, from the snarky people that aren't, that are more interested in seeing those 2 guys fall as opposed to actually looking and analyzing the game. It's like, oh, well, I thought Brady was the offensive coordinator. He's not. He's not. And if you're, I mean, again, those people are being very obtuse, very deliberate. They have an agenda, so of course that's the mindset. But if you sit here and believe that he's the quote unquote offensive coordinator, then you're fooling yourself. Obviously, he has input, as he should. but he's not the one calling the plays. He's not the one, like, people are like, oh, why can't he just audible out of it? Well, when you come in with 3 tight ends and a run-heavy offense, you can't really audible into and run a hurry-up offense. You know what I mean? Like, you need to have the right personnel in place, and you need to have the right people in place in order for him to do what he needs to do. And, you know, to your point about Bruce Arians, and, you know, like, maybe I didn't give him enough credit. You know, it feels like, at least, I don't know if this is true, but it feels like he probably reined in that offense a little bit because, you know, let's go back to last year. 26 in the league in play action usage, which is, again, absurd to think when you have Tom Brady at your quarterback under center. Again, very predictable. These runs on first and second down, ineffective runs, were around last year. Like, this isn't anything new, but at the very least, I feel like Arians' influence was there. And, you know, whether that meant the adjustments were made, you know what I mean, to win games and produce offense, which they just can't do right now. And, you know, look, the Mike Evans drop sucked. And, you know, that early in the game, you can't say that lost them the game, but you can tell that was, and he said it after the game, that it was deflating. And look, it happens, and I'm not blaming him. I mean, again, Brady didn't
have choice of words there on his part.
Yeah, well, yeah, only for the casuals out there, John.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, like, again, and I'm not saying, like, when I say, and this is the problem I run into, John, and again, it's funny to me, but at the same time, not surprising. I will sit there and say, my case is, look, with all the issues the Bucs have, Tom Brady's the very least of their problems. You know what that means? I'm apparently a Brady fanboy and ultimately biased or a stan or whatever you want to call it. And I'm sitting here thinking, like, man, people just don't want to have a discussion. You know what I mean? Like, you know, again, it's far more interesting and easy to latch onto a narrative. And I mean, we saw what happened with the whole Mac Jones, Bailey Zappi thing. An easy story that's very juicy gets thrown out there and people just lap it up without doing any bit of, you know, common sense thinking. And I'm sitting here thinking the same thing with this. It's like, okay, well, I'm looking at a team that, yeah, despite the injury issues, they should still, like, I don't care about injuries. Injuries hurt and you can work around them, and it may limit you in some situations, but injuries shouldn't have this team at 3-4 through 7 weeks. Like, you can overcome, and again, we've seen it. This team goes to up-tempo offense, no huddle, move the ball, pacing themselves. They're just as good or look just as good as they were last year. So what's the issue? Well, this stubbornness, as you know, was mentioned in that clip that I played, on the part of the Bucs offensive coordinator to continue to try to force feed Leonard Fournette the ball. And it doesn't mean completely abandon the run game. It just means stop trying to run the offense through Leonard Fournette. It is not 1995. It is not 2006. It is 2022. And you have the greatest quarterback of all time, and you're handicapping him and this offense by doing the exact opposite of what's successful. And it's just not my perception. I mean, the data is there. It's clear as day. And I've said it all many times before, John. Statistics are flawed. They're not perfect. I think they're far more useful looking back to add context as opposed to looking forward to predict things. So in this case, we're looking at the totality of what we've seen this season. And again, as mentioned in that clip, in that question to Byron Leftwich, the numbers are there. It's clear as day what this team is not good at and what this team is really good at. And the Bucs offensive game plan is the exact opposite of what it should be. And I'm sitting here thinking, like, I think they can turn this around, but I just don't see an option when it comes to coaching. And at this point, 7 weeks into the season, I feel like they're not eager to change. They're being stubborn. And again, based on that response, John, do you think that Byron Leftwich is a man to lead this offense?
No, and I don't think it really helps his cause because we've heard that he's a leading candidate to be a head coach at some point. And since the sport is going so heavily analytics, and that's an analytic stat, like maybe he's not a slave analytics, which in some ways is kind of refreshing, but you got to use them at some point too, right?
You don't even need analytics to see what you see with your eyes. I mean, analytics are these analytics are there only to support what we've seen with our eyes. And again,
exactly.
I watch them run after moving the ball downfield, throwing the ball. Running back dropped a pass in a flat. They got to 3rd and 1. You lose a yard running up the gut. And then the decision was, well, let's run again, but this time let's pick a less effective play in short yardage. And that's a toss to the right. And to me, it's like you don't need the analytics are great because again, it's giving you tangible evidence to support, what I've seen with my own eyes. And that's what the value of analytics are, not to predict, but to kind of add context and give a little bit more substance to your claim, as opposed to just saying, oh, this is what I see. Well, we talk about it all the time, John, perception isn't always reality. In this case, perception is reality because all the numbers back it up. And again, I can't see how through 7 weeks so far, the Bucs coaching staff cannot see this or are unwilling to change.
Is this completely outside the box? Look, it'd be a phenomenal story and it'd be a knee-jerk reaction. Do you go to Bruce Arians and say, come back down to the sideline?
I would.
And finish off the season. Byron Leftwich, you're the offensive coordinator, but you report to Bruce Arians. He's, the guy. And as far as Todd Bowles, you go back to being defensive coordinator. Now, obviously, this would blow up. This would be the biggest story in the league, especially with the Rooney Rule, and I would guarantee you Bomani Jones and, Stephen A. Smith would flip out. You're replacing a black head coach with a coach that did win a Super Bowl 2 years ago. But, that's like a hockey move. We see, Harry Sinden, I can't tell you how many times would come down from the president's or general manager's office and finish off the season. Heck, didn't Larry Robinson win a Stanley Cup as a head coach?
I was just going to say, Robin Fatorik got fired with 13 or less than 13 games left in the season for the Devils back in 2000. Larry Robinson comes down. They go on and win the Stanley Cup. And look, I've in the past, I've, maybe tempered the hype on Bruce Arians, but at the same time, you look back and it's like he won when he was with the Colts. He happened to, he had this team in the right direction. Yeah, they didn't win the Super Bowl last year, but no one in their right mind thought they were completely out of it. They're completely out of it this year, John. And like I said, Todd Bowles is 24-40 before this season as a head coach. That was his 4-year stint with the Jets, and 10 of those wins came in one season, John. So this guy averages about 5 wins a season. So that's
5-6 wins a season, yeah.
And it's like, you're telling me that he was the right guy for the job. You have an offensive heavy team. You go to a defensive minded coach and a very limited offensive coordinator. And again, some of these issues were there last year. I just think in hindsight now we can see maybe Bruce Arians' influence on the offense was a little bit more than we thought, because the difference is alarming from day one, from the last 2 years versus right now and through the first 7 weeks.
Well, we used to hear that Brady and Leftwich would put together the game plan and Bruce Arians would come in with the red pen, and maybe he was making the right corrections at some point, right? Because their offense was electric last year.
Again, a lot of those stories, I don't know how much truth is to all of that. There was, I think some of those kind of take on a life of its own, where it's like, obviously Brady and Leftwich would talk about the game plan. They'd be foolish not to talk about the game plan. And I'm sure Bruce Arians had his input as well, because he was the head coach. So, but to me, it's like, anyone who thinks that Brady this is the type of offense that Tom Brady wants, he's not going to come out that's the difference between him and Rodgers. Rodgers is, sometimes subtle, sometimes not so subtle in his criticism. Brady, for better or worse, is going to just take it and go with it. And we've heard this from other players where, this kind of goes against the whole, well, Brady's the offensive coordinator, he can just call the plays. Well, no. He has immense amount of, I guess, respect for the player-coach relationship. So,
he does, yeah.
Despite his stature, he feels as though it is not his place to coach the coaches. Although, again, probably should, or at least have a little bit more of a urgency when it comes to how they run their offense. So I don't think he would ever say it, but like, I mean, again, how can you be happy with I mean, he's getting the calls in on that third down play, or certainly the fourth down play, and it's like, yeah, are you serious? Are you serious? I kind of almost wanted him to do the Aaron Rodgers, what are we effing doing? And I don't know if you saw that on TV, but that's I mean, any lip reader, any amateur lip reader out there could read that clear as day, and he was right. And Tom Brady should have asked that question too. What the F are we doing?
Yeah, no, without question. I mean, again, like I said, I think Brady and Rodgers have more institutional knowledge about offenses than Byron Leftwich and Matt LaFleur. I think that's the case. In Green Bay's case, Nathaniel Hackett, who's now 2-5 with the Denver Broncos, and they're going down the spiral that it's not necessarily surprising. You kind of called it before the season started because you didn't think Russell Wilson was going to be that big a difference. But Nathaniel Hackett's been a disastrous head coach. I think he served a purpose in Green Bay as offensive coordinator, not necessarily as a play designer or play caller, but I think that he essentially was there to make Aaron Rodgers feel comfortable and make Aaron Rodgers laugh. And you know what? He's worth his weight in gold then because your quarterback's playing at a high level. I also think that one move that the Buccaneers could make is to bring back, or they may have to twist his arm to come back, Rob Gronkowski. Not only what Gronkowski would add to the Buccaneers on the field, I also think that Gronk makes Brady laugh and makes him feel comfortable, right? Because I think he looks at Gronk as like a kid brother, and he kind of envies him a little bit. Like as to say, he doesn't have all the responsibility that I have with the wife and the kids and all that other stuff. This guy makes me laugh. Keep the two quarterbacks happy in some sense.
Let me ask you, John. Did Gronk know?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Maybe he said that this thing's going to, go down the tubes here. Maybe Bruce Arians is. Arians is more. Look, Bruce Arians was pretty successful in Arizona, wasn't he? I mean, the Arizona Cardinals.
I think. Look, I think
he got to an NFC Championship game. I mean, that's high stakes for the Arizona Cardinals when you think about it.
Well, and I think we also too we tend to do this in every aspect of sports. We overhype and then we over criticize. Right. And I think Bruce Arians got a little bit overhyped, but then I think the dismissing, and I'm guilty of this too. So I'm not sitting here pretending like I know all. I know a lot, John. I know most, but not all. Not all.
I
managed to not only humble but raise my ego in a matter of about 5 seconds difference there. But no, but I think again, looking in hindsight, and okay, all things considered, we look at 2021 Buccaneers, we look at the 2022 Buccaneers. Obviously, Rob Gronkowski is not there. There are injuries on the offensive line. However, that's football. Every team deals with injuries. Every team deals with players coming and going. What's the difference? Well, the offense looks anemic. The defense looks unprepared. I mean, Donovan Smith took 3 pre-snap penalties on third down, mostly in short yardage too. And I think there was one at the very end of the game. It was like 3rd and 4, and it was a false start. Mm-hmm. And I thought Brady was about to walk off the field after that. You were just like, Jesus. I mean, again, that tells me it's poor coaching. They're unprepared. Going back to last week, remember the pass play where no one ran a route?
Right. Yeah.
Come on, So I don't know. Again, it's very obvious watching the game, the Bucs issues, the statistics, the data certainly back it up. The only ones not seeing it are those who are rooting for Brady to fail and Byron Leftwich. That's it. And Shannon Sharp, because that's part of his act.
Oh yeah, I mean this is what we have. I'm sure Skip and Shannon will debate today who had a rougher day yesterday, Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers. And the two quarterbacks have become somewhat of a punchline at this point. I mean, every national broadcast yesterday, not the news, but the sports part of it, on talk radio, started off with 2 old quarterbacks look old. Brady loses 21-3 because it's easy to grab.
Exactly.
Yeah, they may not have watched the games.
No, exactly.
It's the same thing. Like people saying, "Well, Brady keeps missing Wednesday practices." When Rick Stroud has reported he hasn't missed a Wednesday practice.
He hasn't missed a single Wednesday practice. But it's like
so it's easy to just blurt that out, right? Even if you don't have the
people,
facts behind you.
they'll pile in. It's like, oh, well, he went to that wedding on Friday. Like, who cares? So because he went to a wedding on Friday, the defense let PJ Walker shred them. You know what I mean? Or it's like because he went to a wedding last Friday, it somehow affected the previous 4 weeks where these issues. You know what I mean? It's like like obviously like this is kind of the bigger problem when it comes to sports discourse and discussion is it's far too reliant on just the easy take, and no one wants to dive in and analytically or appropriately analyze the game and actually discuss the game. And that's what we're doing, John. That's why we're number one in some list that I made up, but number one regardless.
Okay. I'm glad.
One of one, actually. Oof. Got some
We're
flashback.
unicorns.
I just said one of one, and anyone out there that's followed the Bucs or Saints probably just quivered because of a certain person that I don't know. I'm not even going to bother. But the point is, though, we're looking at these two guys, and again, people are enjoying the quote unquote downfall, and I sit here and I kind of chuckle, and I'm like, well, how many times have you done this before? And it's like, really, it's kind of showing who you are. It's like, yeah, I'm going to root against certain teams, but I don't. Like, I think I said it last week. Like, I don't root for anyone to fail. You know what I mean? Like that's such a loser mentality. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'll root against a team because obviously competition, and I'm trying to distinguish. I'm trying to make the difference between rooting, like sports rooting against, and then just like actively rooting for someone to fail and just go away. You know what I mean? And like you're seeing a lot of that with Rodgers and Brady's haters out there when. Again, the reality of it is they don't want to watch it, and how can I blame them when the Bucs offensive coordinator isn't even aware of some of these things? You know what I mean? Like, how can I fault fans for jumping on them when Byron Leftwich isn't even aware of these situations or clearly doesn't care enough to try to do something about it?
And both teams have quick turnarounds. Obviously, the Buccaneers host Baltimore on Thursday, so that's going to be a tough matchup. And then Green Bay has to travel to Buffalo on Sunday night. Good luck with that. So they could both be staring at 3-5 midway through the season. And look, both guys can turn this thing around, but the NFC is a little deeper than we anticipated. But there's a bunch of these 3 and 4 teams. Like San Francisco, everyone tells me is a Super Bowl contender, is now 3 and 4 with a quarterback who is below average.
Look, there's after watching that game yesterday in this league. That's it.
And there's Buffalo, Kansas City, and Philadelphia we have to put in there because they haven't lost, right? I mean, Does Dallas look that great yesterday? The Giants are finding ways to win because it seems like every week, look, the Giants are a great story, and Brian Daboll is probably front runner for Coach of the Year. But it seems like every team that plays the Giants, gets a brain fart and doesn't just – Jacksonville had an opportunity to go up 7 late in the game yesterday if they just kicked a simple field goal. Instead, they go for it. Don't get it, and then the Giants go down and score what turned out to be the winning touchdown. So, team. Sometimes you have those years, right, where you just find. Look, the Packers won 13 games 3 years in a row, and there were many games they won that I would turn the TV off and say, "How the hell did they pull that one off?" It would be like a poor decision by the other coach, or Rodgers made a great throw, or whatever.
But someone missed a field goal or made a field goal. Tend to do that though, and that's part of it.
That's the league now, right? And that's what the league is. I mean, it's just. I think I tweeted out yesterday. Right now, you've got Philly 6-0, Minnesota 5-1, the 6-1, Dallas 5-2, Seattle's 4-3 and leading the NFC West. I thought they was tank mode. Meanwhile, Denver's 2-5, right? Tampa, Green Bay, and San Francisco, 3 of the 4 teams that made it to the divisional round last year, all 3-4. So it's this league. I mean, the quality of play. Brady's right. He said it a month and a half ago. Is not very good. But the games are kind of, you can't take your eyes off of them because they're intriguing to say the least.
Trust me, I wanted to take my eyes off that Bucs game. Trust me, I don't know if 3 days is enough between now and Thursday to prepare myself to watch another one of those offensive game plans because I just don't feel like, again, that response really just put a bad feeling in my gut as it tells me that they don't seem interested or willing to admit maybe their philosophy is off a little bit. Like I said, I think, look, if you want to get really I'm 100% with you, John. They need to rectify this coaching situation. This isn't, this is a difference between potentially having an opportunity to win a Super Bowl and then just going in the tank because nothing is going to convince me that the Buccaneers, a team that was literally had the worst winning percentage in all of sports prior to Brady's arrival, is somehow going to maintain its contendership once Brady is
Right.
gone. And not that it's all Brady again. When I and that's the problem. These are the terrible conversations we get into. When I say obviously Tom, like the Buccaneers were not a Super Bowl contender before Tom Brady. Tom Brady made them a Super Bowl contender. Doesn't mean he literally did everything. And that's kind of the response I always get. Oh, he doesn't do everything. I'm like, no, of course he doesn't win it by itself. But by that same standard, nothing in football is achieved individually. Like people are like, oh, wins are a team stat. Well, so are receptions and touchdowns. And you know what I mean? There's factors, there's elements in every single part of that. Great quarterbacks win football games. That's the bottom line. Doesn't mean they win every single week. Doesn't mean they always outplay their opponent. You know what I mean? It's not a perfect science, just like every other stat isn't a perfect science, but it gives you some sort of indication of what you've seen so far to this point. And I'm looking at it, and I'm like, well, Buccaneers have talent. Yeah, they're injured, but they should overcome it because of who their quarterback is. And right now, it feels like Byron Leftwich and this coaching staff is just a massive anchor holding them back because people are surprised about this Bucs defense. I'm not. This is exactly what they were last year. The only problem is they're not getting the offense to overcome it. So like people are like, what happened to the Bucs defense? Well, it's the same defense they were last year. They had really good moments. They let up a lot of yards. They had lapses of judgment this season. I mean, let's not forget the very last play essentially of the season last year was an all-out blitz. Who called that? Oh, the Bucs' new head coach, completely unaware of the situation. An all-out blitz that left Cooper Kupp, the Triple Crown winner, John, one-on-one. And that guy's your head coach making the decisions on how to attack each game, each season, or each week. Yeah, it's frustrating. It's frustrating. And like I said, I'm just glad I'm not an actual Bucs fan. I'm just a Tom Brady fan who's hoping that this isn't what we're going to see him go out as, because we've already seen stupid comments on Twitter about someone admitting, like, oh, you know, they're going to the role of Drew Brees. I'm like, do you remember Drew Brees from the last few seasons he played? Or like, you know, I don't know. It's I need to figure out a way to impress upon them my opinion. But I guess
serenity
now. Insanity
serenity now. Yes. The turnaround may actually help. I'm just going to read it into this, that it only gives that coaching staff a half a week to prepare, which might be a good thing. We saw it with Detroit when you give Dan Campbell 2 weeks to prepare. He's even worse than when he gets only 1 week to prepare. So an incompetent coaching staff at times, you know, the shorter week may help. They may have time to screw things up. Maybe they'll simplify things. Maybe they'll wake up this morning and go, well, let's keep it simple. Let Tom take care of things. Maybe that'll work. That's a way to be positive, Ian.
Yeah, I'm I like the confidence, Sean. I really do, but unfortunately, there are 60 minutes in a game that opens the door for a lot of bad decisions on the part of that coaching staff. Just like kicking a field goal to just from a 2-score game to a 2-score game late in the game. that was, again,
right. Yeah.
Like, and trust me, I'm very conservative when it comes to kicking and going. You know, I've obviously, you know, I tend to be a little bit more cautious. I'm not, you know, throw caution to the wind and let's just go for it. That's what we do. No, I tend to be very, but even I was sitting there like, what are you doing? Like, go for it. Like, but here's the thing though, John, it's like, if they would have gone for it, they would have probably run the ball and I would have really hit that insanity mark. Like like if you can picture like a gauge and like, you know, I'm getting dangerously close to that fault line where it's like you go past that line, you're going to blow it. I mean, I was like scraping the bottom of that line. And had they actually gone for it and then decided to ball, I just would have burst past that line. I would have never come back. I would have been in a hospital the rest of my life, like muttering. I don't know. That's where I would have been if that would have happened. And like I said, I'm just glad this isn't the Patriots and Tom Brady, because at least that's a little bit of a silver lining in all this.
I don't think that would happen, though. I mean,
No.
That type of stuff just would not happen. It wouldn't happen. I mean, obviously, Belichick's one of the greatest coaches in the history of the sport, and Todd Bowles is Todd Bowles, and that certainly wouldn't happen. Because even in 2019, where things weren't perfect, they still managed to go 12-4. I mean, it's just those two guys together. We're going to get 12 wins every year, and a couple times they got 11 wins. And oh, by the way, they won Super Bowls in those years. So yeah, that you're not going to see that type of stuff happen with Belichick and so forth. It's just frustrating to watch because it seems like it's something that can be corrected
easily.
And it just seems like the coaching staff's getting in the way of it. It's sometimes, it's almost like with the analytics type stuff. And look, I like analytics. I like to look back at analytics, not necessarily to expect what it's going to make happen. But, if you go play blackjack, I mean, like Brandon Staley, who just goes for it on fourth down no matter what. And Dan Campbell's the same way. So if they're playing blackjack in Vegas and they've got 18 and the dealer's showing a deuce, do they just get hit or do they stay at 18? Like, they probably just keep getting hit, right? Because they're going for 21. Like, they're not going to be satisfied at 18 when, the mind would tell you to stick at 18. I just think that if coaches in the NFL did, like, normal things, like kick the field goal when you have that opportunity, punt when you're supposed to punt, do whatever, that they would be better off than, mucking it up with too much analysis, paralysis through over-analysis, because I think that's the case right now with some of these coaches.
Well, like I said, I mean, you don't even, when it comes to the Buccaneers, you don't even need analytics to see, you know what I mean, what's happening.
Right.
And that's the thing. It's like analytics are great because it only really further emphasizes what a lot of people have been saying and have seen rise. You don't need, like, again, to in real time, you're on the sideline, rushing the ball has just not worked at all, and you get down in front of the goal line, 3rd and 1, and you rush and you lose the yard, and their instinct is to go right back to the rush. Like, at least give it a shot and throw the ball, because clearly, and again, so that tells me that I have very little hope, sadly, that this coaching staff is going to turn things around, because they just seem too stubborn or unable to, or incapable. I don't, whatever you want to call it. It's just, it's not something that I'm seeing as a quick fix. I mean, it could be. That's the thing, John. It could be a very quick fix. Go back to what you did last. Play the offense you played last year. Because guess what? That offense ran through Tom Brady's arm. And that offense was the second leading scoring offense in the league last year by a marginal point difference between them and Dallas. And you're talking about a team that was at the top of just about every offensive category all of a sudden with largely the same number of players. Now, again, missing Gronk is huge. Some of the injuries are huge, but these are professional athletes. And I've always said before that injuries aren't necessarily an excuse. They could certainly be a cause for struggle. But a team like the Buccaneers should win regardless. You know what I mean? Like, they have enough talent to overcome the losses that they've suffered, but don't have enough to overcome being put in terrible positions to succeed. I mean, that's what it is. You're asking this team to do what they do worst and somehow succeed doing it.
They're losing to teams they should beat handily, right? Pittsburgh and Carolina.
The last 2 years, they've beaten Carolina by like an average of 26 points in 4 games.
Right.
And they just lost by 18.
They were a 13-point favorite on the road. Like, you don't see that in the NFL. We saw that with the 07 Patriots. Remember, they'd go into Buffalo and be like a 20-point favorite and then go ahead and cover it. The Buccaneers are actually losing the games. I mean, Green Bay's had their struggles, but you can kind of look back and say, okay, they've lost to the 6-1 Giants and the 5-2 Jets. Maybe those teams aren't all that bad. Mm-hmm. And then yesterday's loss, Washington's not that good. Although somehow the NFC East is 16-3 outside of the division this year.
Yeah, that's wild.
That's wild. I mean, that was supposed to be one of the weaker divisions of football. I mean, even Washington, they're 3-4. They still play defense. Mm-hmm. They seem to still play hard. They've got some good weapons on offense, so they're not an easy team to beat. They're not all that great, but that's not a bad last place team. It sounds like a Yogi Berra statement, but the other 3 teams are all on a roll. They only seem to beat each other when they face each other. So, the league is just totally screwed up. And look, if the Patriots win tonight, you'll have all 4 teams in the AFCs were winning records, and the Patriots still would technically be in last place at 4-3 and trending in the right direction. So right now, the 2 Eastern divisions are really, really good, and the West not as good as we thought they'd be, because outside of Kansas City and the AFC West, everybody else in those 2 Western divisions is struggling.
Yeah, and look, I mean, I just realized that we've spent nearly 45 minutes on the 45-year-old. So unfortunately, we're not going to get to everything that we wanted to, but tomorrow we'll talk more about, obviously, teams like the Chargers, who, again, both of us missed the mark on them. I mean, we certainly were not believers in their coaching staff, but felt that they had enough to at least they've taken 3 steps back this season, and that's surprising. We're going to talk more about that. Before we go, though, first off, actually, silver lining about yesterday, the Yankees lost. Phillies and Houston will be meeting in the World Series, and what in a incredible coincidence, I guess. Houston and the Eagles play in the middle of that World Series in football. So that'll be kind of a nice little subplot to all that. Tonight, you already mentioned the Patriots. The Patriots at home against Chicago. Even winning, they might have. I honestly, you can make a case that they're despite being in last place in the division, might be the second best team in the AFC East. I think they're the most trusted team to keep it together. Does that make sense? I think the Jets.
Well, the track record, obviously. I mean, the Jets are 5-2 and great. Now they've lost Bryce Hall for the season.
And we
he's a big part of what they were doing.
And we kind of talked about that with them, where it's maybe this might be just a year or 2 early for the Jets, which isn't a bad thing. It just means that I kind of feel like they're overachieving a little bit. You know what I mean? So it's not, to me, I'm not seeing it as something sustainable. And again, that's not a bad thing. That's a great sign for the Jets. I think they have a really bright future. Miami looked pretty good. I mean, for the first half, they were up 16-0, won 16-10. I think they're a pretty good team, but the last 4 weeks or so kind of opened the door for me to sit here and say, well, maybe the Patriots are the second best team in the division. Now, again, that can change in an instant. We saw last year where the Patriots had the inside track to the division, and then boom, just like that, it was gone. But I think this team is different. I think again, living down here in the Tampa area and having to watch this Buccaneers team each and every week, the coaching is drastic. And the Patriots are always going to be prepared to win a game. Doesn't mean they're going to win a game. They're always going to be prepared to win a game, whereas I don't think that's happening with the Buccaneers right now. So tonight, I look at it, I'm like, well, Chicago is a bad team. They can't produce any sort of odds. And you're going against a very good defensive unit, which, again, you would ever thought after that, how could you not pay J.C. Jackson? And on a side note, hopefully he's healthy. He went down yesterday. But, from a football ability standpoint, he's had a very bad season. And I think, once again, Bill Belichick's kind of showing you that he's pretty good at drafting and finding talent. Just because, he doesn't have first-round wide receivers doesn't mean he's a bad drafter.
Well, he did rush back from that ankle surgery and then ends up blowing out his knee. So, I mean, he had 2 really bad injuries this year for J.C. Jackson. That team is just loaded with injuries. But tonight, Chicago can't move the ball. Their offense is literally like a 1950s offense. Yeah. I don't know.
It's going back every decade. A couple weeks ago, 1970s. Now it's going back even further. It's like a time machine, John. It's kind of cool.
We're insulting the 1950s with comparing the Chicago Bears to a 1950s offense, but they do have a good defense. And look, I think the Patriots will win tonight. I don't think it's going to be a blowout that everybody's predicting. No. Only because Chicago's defense is good. And look, they lost to the Vikings by 7 on the road, and then the Giants by 8 on the road. Those 2 teams only have 1 loss each. Again, I'm not saying they're going to win the game, but I think it might be a little closer than people anticipate. And it's an 8.5-point spread. If I was a betting man, I would take the Bears with the points, but I expect the Patriots to find a way to win.
Yeah, look, I don't think it's going to be a blowout, but I think the Patriots are going to win comfortably. Meaning, I think they're just going to control the game. There's not going to be too much doubt so to speak. And again, I'm trying to make it very clear that I'm not calling a blowout. I mean, this could be a 3 or 10-point game, but you know what I mean? Like one of those games where it's like the Patriots just kind of do their job, so to speak. And it just kind of, you know, wipe your hands clean and move on to the next week. And I kind of think that's what we're going to get here tonight. So obviously I'm picking the Patriots. I think we might have on Friday actually given our picks for this game, but closing this out on a high note, I'm going to take the Patriots, and I'm guessing you are too because you just said it.
Yeah, close.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty close. I think like 20-17, something along those lines. You sound like more of a 23-10 type game, or
no, not even that. I still think it's going to be a close game. I just, like I said, not the Patriots are going to control this game, just not a blowout. And
right.
Okay. You know, to me, I think they're just going to handle business and really not have, you know, too much doubt throughout the night. But then again, I thought the Buccaneers were going to get things right against the Steelers, and then I thought they were going to get things right yesterday, and that was not the case. But fortunately for the Patriots, they do not have Byron Leftwich. They're lucky, John, to have Matt Patricia. Yeah, I know.
Matt Patricia looks like Bill Walsh compared to Byron Leftwich.
Matt Patricia looks like he invented football, and is, you know what I mean? That's how much further. Anyways, but thank you everyone. We will be back tomorrow, Tuesday, which means we're going to be doing our little hockey. But we will also discuss this game and kind of give our thoughts more on Sunday because, like I said, we spent a lot of time on the old guys. So, yeah, which I don't regret. Had to get a lot off my chest. But remember, folks, it's not their problem. They're the least of their team's concerns. And for a minute, step back and actually evaluate the things that we're seeing. So anyways, have a great day, folks, and we will talk to you mañana.